on Saturdays and Sundays. So tell our viewers that this is our very first episode of Health 360 Plus, which means that from today onwards, and this is our first episode, every Friday at 5 p.m. we'll have one expert, one medical expert with us to answer your questions and to take questions from me on the relevant health topic. Like for example, tomorrow we are going big on talking about health during summers, your diet, your hair care, your wellness during this time, your skin care. All of these questions will be answered tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, and the timings are 9:30 and 4:30 on Saturdays, 10:30 and 3:30 p.m. on Sundays. But on Fridays at 5 o'clock, we'll have a top expert join in and talk to us about the relevant health topic. This time around, we have Chief Dermatologist, Aina Clinics and Chief Medical Officer clinically, Dr. Simal Soin, join us. And thank you so much for joining. And this is our first episode of Health 360 Plus. And I'm glad that you've made it to the show today. Dr. Soin.
Wonderful. It's good to be here.
Dr. Soin, when we talk about summer health, I think all of us battle certain issues which are fairly recurrent in terms of, our hair going for a toss, the skin going for a complete toss. And that's the reason why I want to begin by asking you, this is a common mistake that all of us make. The product that we're using during winters is the same product that we pick up and use even during summers. Is that a common mistake that you come across, and what do you have to tell the viewers?
Absolutely. So I always say to people, just like we lighten our wardrobe, the same way we need to lighten our skincare. So everything needs to go down. So the heavy cleansers need to be replaced by light cleansers for the face. Your SPF, which is heavier in the winters, again needs to be lighter. And so, you go on to using more facial toners and facial mists. Your makeup needs to be lighter. It needs to be more powdery. So everything needs to become lighter. Your moisturizer as well. And another important thing to remember is that while we think we don't need moisturizers for the summer, and a lot of people tend to think of sweaty, oily skin and the sebum layer as like a layer of moisturizer and to substitute, but it is not. So lighter moisturizers are also needed in the summer, because remember that the skin barrier with sun exposure. So the lighter moisturizer comes in really handy to keep the stratum corneum intact, the uppermost layer of the skin intact. So you're absolutely right. We need to go lighter with everything in the summers.
Around sunscreen lotions.
So sunscreen usage is important. It depends on the type of skin type you have. It's important you use gel-based sunscreens, less oily sunscreens for people with oily skin. So that you need your dermatologist's advice, and I can give you a few recommendations as we go down. But so it's important, and it's also really important that we reapply it every 2 hours. Because that's the time, that's why the SPF is calculated according to the time that it stays on the skin. Okay. So if you're out in the sun, you're out and about, you got to make sure you have a water-resistant sunscreen. And the sunscreens also, of course, need to be lighter. But nowadays we have very high-quality sunscreen, and also, there's no point going into the technical specifications, but you need lighter sunscreens with an SPF 30 to 50 for everybody, depending on where.
For everyone, basically. Above, there are sunscreens with SPF 50 above as well. Am I correct? Yeah.
The first rule of summer since skincare is SPF, SPF, SPF for your face, your neck, your arms, your hands, and your body as well. So because that's another thing. And also not just SPF, you also got to make sure your hair's covered, you've got your cap on, just to protect.
Because Dr. Soin, what we always end up doing is that we tend to just protect our face, a lot of us. Yes. And given the Indian fixation with a, fairer skin, we are all very afraid during this time. Kali ho gayi hai is what you hear all the time, Dhoop mein reh ke, dhoop mein nahi jao. I want to ask you, what about the hair? The hair is often the most neglected part, is what I believe in. What's the kind of protection that it needs and demands?
Can I also add for the sunscreens? The other thing is the sun is not just bad for tanning, but it's also for burning, but it's also that it causes more free radical production that time. So you to protect yourself from more free radical damage, it's important for us to sometimes, for a lot of us, to take oral antioxidants, which protect you sort of at a deeper level from the, if you, especially if you're going, if you have a lot of sun exposure. So for the hair again, for the hair, you're talking about the hair. So for the hair, yes, it's important that, so less heat to the hair for obvious reasons, less washing of the hair. You need to make sure that you don't strip your hair of all the oils which should stay in the scalp. So less heat, less shampooing, less color, less blow dry. The only thing that needs to be more is little more leave-in conditioners and serums to protect your hair from the sun's rays. And I promise you, the sun impacts the hair as much as the face and all, because you'll find that you tend to get so much more, the hair becomes much more scraggly, and split ends become much worse in the summer season.
Right. There are two schools of thought here, and please tell me what really is the way forward. A lot of dermatologists nowadays do advise, and I've been given that do not oil your hair. There are some reasons why some patients are advised not to oil their hair or their scalp, if I can put it that way. What would be your advice for oiling your scalp during summers, and should we at all oil our scalp?
I think that again depends on your hair. I don't think one size fits all here.
Right.
It would generally depend on how dry your scalp is, how it tends to be. You can, but not too much. You've got to avoid too much of everything in the summer. You cannot oil your hair too much. Again, not very hot hair, water for showering your hair. That's also very important. Gentle plant-based shampoos, without paraben, without sulfates, which maintain the pH level of the scalp also. So everything goes down, everything's lighter. And I'm not a great proponent of oiling the hair too much unless it's for a particular reason where I'm trying to address hair loss issues. In which case, sometimes I will give, particular hair oil which has natural ingredients like black pepper, pea oil and all, which actually just arrest hair fall because it shocks the hair to not falling. So, but otherwise, I don't think that you should oil your hair more in the summers. It will just depends on how dry it is, how dry.
Just give us a sense of the kind of impact that chlorine in the water has on the skin, and what are the sunscreens that protect your skin and your body against that chlorine?
We have to use a water-resistant sunscreen, and also for the chlorine, you've got to make sure your hair is covered, because I think so that's why you've got to tie it back nicely when you're swimming, because chlorine has the maximum impact on hair while swimming, and you've got all scraggly ends that come out. So that's why, and also then if you're swimming a lot, and if you're in the water a lot, then you've got to make sure that your shampoos then are light. You see, so it's important to focus on your focus area. So you've got to make sure that if you have a tendency to that, then it's so tempting because the hair becomes oily much faster, especially if you have oily skin. But no, try to avoid washing your hair every single day. Put some little talc to get rid of the, that little oily feel. Unless you really do need to, and it's needed for, treatment or something like that.
You mentioned talcum powder, and here's my question about talcum powder. And, there are just so many opinions on using talcum powder. A lot of people say that it blocks the pores of your body, and one should really avoid using talcum powder on the body, in your armpits, for example. What would you advise?
Not talcum powder. So for me, I normally would say, there's even for women when they're using deodorants and antiperspirants, you have to use the right one. Resting powder is fine to use. It's just that you don't do anything in excess. You don't have to spray it all over the body, but underarms, groins, wherever it's needed, it's fine to use it.
Dr. Simal, because you said that nowadays there are just so many chemicals in everything that we use. You mentioned parabens at the outset, and you also mentioned sulfates at the very outset. I want to ask you, once you buy a product, how do you read the label there? What are those products that you should be watching out for and keeping away from?
I think there is a lot of, so you've got to use, for example, now when I give even shampoos, I like to give plant-based shampoos for the summer, which have no parabens, no sulfates. We use a product called Root D, Pave, Rene Future, they're all plant-based shampoos. And there's a lot of consciousness nowadays. You will see that it says paraben sulfate free. And if it does not say, please check, with your dermatologist or with a doctor or your chemist, whoever you're buying it from, is this paraben or sulfate free? You've got to avoid those as far as possible. It usually
Doctor-
does talk about,
Yes.
there's a lot of
sorry.
consciousness not using these ingredients. Even in things like deodorants now, actually.
Yes, I was coming to that. A few weeks ago, I did happen to have a word with the dermatologist because Health 360 had done, in fact, an entire show on chemicals around us. And my interest was that of deodorants and its link with certain cancers, including breast cancer. One of the dermatologists actually told me that, while using a deodorant, never apply directly on the skin. You should, in fact, apply it on the clothes that you're wearing, if you really have to. And then use those clothes after a gap of a couple of minutes. Is that good advice, or what do you have to say? What's your take?
It may not serve the purpose. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
It may not serve the purpose. You can spray perfume all over, but if you have if there is sweat and it smells, then that's still always going to be embarrassing. So there are a couple of deodorants which I will tell you. There is a particular brand called Native, and there's another brand. There's two brands which are actually safe for people. They've been proven to be safe for women of all age groups now. So I will, if you're interested, I can let you know what brand that is at some point.
Absolutely.
If you want.
Please do mention it if at all there are people like me, because I honestly, after just researching so much on chemicals and cancer-causing chemicals, and having a cancer case in my family recently, I've just stopped using deodorants completely.
So this is ones which have been edited. It's actually called Native, and really it's all aluminum free, paraben free, sulfate free, and it ditches all the bad stuff.
Okay.
So basically, and it's good for. So I'm just trying to remember the name. It's called Native.
Okay.
So it's got eucalyptus, mint, lavender, and it does the job. So you can put the deodorant on your clothes. It's fine. But what I mean is it may not do the job. And it may work for some people, but sometimes if you know what sweaty pits can be like. We often have people actually who come and do Botox in the underarm area because that actually stops sweating for long periods of time.
Oh, that's something that I didn't know about.
And it's like it's a therapeutic treatment. It's just like a 5-minute treatment, but it stops sweating for long periods of time. And like Botox is this word, but really it helps people with kids with cerebral palsy. It helps. So it's fine. It's okay to use it for therapeutic purposes completely, not just cosmetic. And it does an amazing job of really holding back those sweat glands for a few months.
Interesting. From Botox for underarms, I'd like to just take our viewers back to the kitchen. I have a question about your garden and your kitchen. What are the natural products around us that we must use for various reasons? For example, for deodorizing reasons, or for cooling your body during summers, in your kitchen, in your garden.
So let me tell you a couple of things here. Cucumber, aloe vera sprays, great idea. I don't like to use products just from the garden right onto your face.
Right.
And let me tell you why. Not a great idea to use lemon on your face or tomato on your face and step out into the sun. You are going to get a terrible skin burn for sure. These are acidic products and they are photosensitive. They react with the sun. So don't think that every product that you use on your face is safe to walk out in the sun. Everything, even an aloe vera sometimes directly can burn you. Right. So use aloe vera sprays, use cucumber sprays, use rose sprays, jasmine sprays. Sprays are also good. So in the summer, toners work well, especially that's the only time I give them toners. I ask them to exfoliate their skin. That's the only time I say you can self-exfoliate. But nice to use sprays, which also can double up as toners, which have cucumber and aloe vera. And fenugreek is a good idea for the hair anyways, like maybe fenugreek water, because it's good for keeping, the natural oils in, prevents hair falling.
Okay. All right, Dr. Soin, I'm going to thank you for the moment, for joining us, for connecting with us and sharing your views on just so many issues. that we all deal with summer after summer. But it's important to just sit back and think on what really is required. Important to point out that what you eat is as equally important than what you put on your body, on your skin and on your hair, and that is one part that we must never neglect. Hydration again is one part that we must never neglect. I'm going to thank you for connecting with us, Dr. Simal Soin, for sharing her views.
Wonderful.
Thank you
for
so
having
much.
me on. Happy to give suggestions for any products in case you're interested. We can
All
put
right.
that out.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Soin. I'm going to thank our viewers also for